Welcome to Embody Your Brilliance, a podcast for visionary daughters of immigrants and creative entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eunice Kimian, somatic life and business coach, mom, and Korean American eldest daughter of immigrants. Each week, you'll hear stories, insights, and conversations to help you embody your unique brilliance beyond survival mode so that you can design a life you actually want and grow a peaceful, profitable business you're proud of that supports you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Embody Your Brilliance. I'm your host, Eunice Kimian. And this week, I'm so excited to share a replay of an intimate fireside chat that I did with my friend Yoo-Jin. She is a trauma-informed consultant, astrologer, and founder of Eldest Daughters Collective. And we had a very honest, unfiltered conversation all about our journey of finding our own aligned path. The fireside chat was called Finding Your Aligned Path. And we talked about our journey of finding and remembering our purpose, navigating identity and creativity, entrepreneurship, business, career pivots, life pivots. And we share all of this from the lived experience of being first generation Korean American women and eldest daughters, balancing the expectations placed on us as well as the expectations that we took on gladly or unknowingly, as well as figuring out, okay, how do we move from here in an authentic way? And how do we also move through some of the misalignments that we found along the way? So I'm so excited for you to listen and hear what resonates with you. And before we get into the episode, I wanted to share that I have one one-on-one somatic business coaching spot available for the rest of the year. So if you've been thinking about wanting to work with me and exploring what that looks like for you, book a one-on-one clarity call session today. I combine business strategy with nervous system support so that you can grow your business peacefully and profitably. And if you're in the season of wanting to make your business financially viable and profitable enough so that you don't have to rely on your 9-to-5 job that feels misaligned now, or it feels like you've graduated from that, and while you want to work on something so life-giving and so creatively aligned, it feels just unrealistic or just something that you need support right now to make sure that you get to your goals in the next 6 months, let's talk. And in our clarity call session, we'll pinpoint what's keeping you stuck, create a custom action plan for your business and your nervous system, and unlock your next breakthrough so that you can finally move forward with clarity, with momentum and peace, and take action on the dreams that you've been sitting on and be able to embody your unique zone of genius, clarify your offerings, and sell your offerings with confidence and create the aligned, freedom-filled, joy-filled life that you're ready for. So the link to book a clarity call session is in the show notes. And now let's get into the episode. I'm personally so excited for this conversation because Yoo-Jin and I were talking about how we need some more fun and play into our lives right now when there's so much going on in the world. And how do we continue to listen to our body, our intuition, our unique purpose while there is so much noise going on, right? So, Yoo-Jin, do you want to start with your intro?
Oh, sure. Well, ditto to everything you just said. It's been really wonderful connecting with you. And yes, this is definitely a highlight. I know the week just started, but it's been a long week. So a little bit about me. I'm Yoo-Jin. I use she, hers pronouns. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area. Let's see. As you may know, I'm an astrologer and love learning about other people's signs. Something that's been bringing me joy lately is rediscovering that you can have ice cream at any time of the day. So if you just want to start your morning eating ice cream, do it, because the world is trying to bring you down and send you rules about what you're supposed to do. You can do whatever you want. So that's been my week, is having ice cream for breakfast, because you can.
I totally agree. I had this triple chocolate ice cream from Jenny's ice cream last night. It was delicious. Hi, I'm Eunice. I am a mom to my 17-month-old son, Teo, whose name means shining star in Korean, Kim Teo. And I'm Korean American eldest daughter with two younger brothers, aka third parent and caretaker from an early age. I immigrated to the US when I was 7, and I have felt like this in between entity for a very long time. And I have gone on my own journey of reclaiming both and integrating all parts of my identity. Something that's been giving me a lot of joy is I recently returned to traditional Korean dance. And I just recorded a podcast episode about this actually, but it's just bringing me so much creative life force coursing through my body because I had to pause for the last 2 years, basically, when I was pregnant, postpartum. It was really hard. I need to drive an hour and a half to get to class, and it's like 2 hours. It's a whole commitment and it's a financial commitment. But for whatever reason, it helps me live out my inner artist, inner child performer energy. And it's also my form of ancestral connection. So that's been giving me a lot of joy. I'm a somatic business coach for visionary daughters of immigrants, entrepreneurs, and creatives and women of color who are ready to shine unapologetically. And I help folks grow a peaceful, profitable business that they love without overworking, overthinking, and burning out. I bring together a decade of culturally informed somatic coaching with business strategy to help you bring out your unique brilliance, your unique zone of genius to make a financially viable business. So I think that's it. Oh, something that I felt like sharing in this moment too is that the dolphin spirit, the animal of dolphin spirit, is something that gives me a lot of joy and helps me tap into play energy that I will bring up in a little bit later as well. As a Capricorn rising, I don't know if there are any other Capricorn risings in the room. A lot of it has been how can I remember play? And how can we remember that this journey, while serious and while we bring our big visions to life, how can we bring a sense of play and lightheartedness to the picture? So that's a little bit about me.
Very
But
nice.
I would love to just dive in and feel free to continue to write in the chat and we'll have some time for a Q&A as well. But if there are any questions in the meantime, feel free to throw it in and we'll either answer it as we go or towards the end. Well, Yoo-Jin, I would love to hear from you because I love how you're an astrologer, but you're also many other things. And I feel like the many other things also, the fact that you integrate all of your first gen identity, you're Korean American, like founder of Eldest Daughters Collective, trauma informed consultant, the list goes on. But it speaks to such a nuanced view of how you can lean on astrology and somatics and all these different tools to help you tune into what your purpose is, especially when growing up as an eldest daughter and first gen Korean American. I imagine there's a lot of voices at play and like pressures externally, what your family wants you to do, what capitalism, what American culture wants you to do, what Korean culture wants you to do. So, how do you tune into what your authentic purpose is when there are all these other forces at play trying to pull you in other directions?
That's such a good question. I mean, one of the things I think about, and I feel very grateful to my parents for, is being a first generation immigrant. There are some like old world beliefs that people who immigrate, our parents especially, like, bring with them. And then quickly, being in different communities, my parents had to adapt very quickly to understand this is not obviously Korea and different world all in its own. So I immigrated similar to you, Eunice. I came here when I was really young. And, I learned like English here. I remember ESOL classes. I remember my kindergarten teacher. It was like a very formative time for me. I was in the Pacific Northwest in Tacoma, Washington. And the minute I started to retain language and like get into school, I quickly realized like I was surpassing some of the like social and cultural competence that my parents, who are like actively figuring out adult thing, also culturally, I'm more immersed than they are. So one thing was, as the eldest and the first, I was on the phone with Comcast. They'd be like, "Is this Miss Kim?" I'd be like, "Yes, this is she." And like, no, it's not. It's not a grown person doing, the modem work. But I was like calling, like I was showing what papers to sign and where. So there's a lot of translating happening in multiple ways. There's like language, culture, like adulting things that I was more able to have capacity to do because of some of the language competence. So I think in that way, my parents obviously had big dreams and visions for me, but there are ways they also had to let me do my thing because
Mm.
I had to do it so early and so young. So one of the ways I pivoted from not letting the voices overcrowd me. It's been hard. I mean, I'm just gonna preface this with that it's hard, as a first gen immigrant, as an eldest daughter. Like one of the core things I had to work through in my heart is like I want my parents to understand and accept me and like also love what I love, which was unrealistic because these are different people orienting to a different point in time. But something I've had to realize is like I had to be willing to disappoint my parents in order for me to live in my purpose and like go through my own grief and heartbreak that comes with like understanding our parents are as full human beings. And that took a lot of therapy and many years to process. But the minute I was willing to do that and take more full accountability of my life and my choices, things completely transformed for me.
Yeah, being willing to disappoint your family, other people, which is so painful, first of all. Especially if you're naturally empathetic or it is a survival mechanism to be able to read the room. And in Korean culture, there's a term called nunchi, and it's like eye measure. And you're just kind of like, you go in and you read the room. And that's not just an emotional intelligence skill, it's a societal expectation, I feel like, in a collectivist culture to adjust yourself to the room and the chemistry of the room, the needs of the collective. And that's how the country of Korea was able to overcome really hard things. And so, immigrating here and finding your own path, you're actively going against something that's been ingrained in you, which is to accommodate and make other people comfortable, especially your primary caretaker. So, I imagine that requires a lot of courage. So, thank you for sharing. I really, really resonate with that. And for me, my somatic healing journey started when I had debilitating chronic back pain. So it was like my body forced me to. So when you ask, how did you get into it? It's like, not really by choice. My body was basically screaming at me. I couldn't sit for more than 10 minutes at a time without feeling like in deep pain. And I tried everything and it didn't really work. And this was around the time I was in college. So I feel like I had hustled for most of my life, similar to you, Yuzin. I immigrated here. I didn't speak the language. My mom still tells me the story when we first immigrated. I kind of skipped into second grade, which why did I skip into second grade when I didn't know English? The English teacher was assigning us homework, which is write a journal entry every day with pictures and a few sentences. I did not speak English at the time, though. So it's like, for me, I'm trying to draw a picture of my day and write my day. Except apparently I did. I just did. And I don't know how my 7-year-old brain, I know that's kind of the cusp for picking up languages, but basically my mom said I was sitting in the corner of my apartment and just not pulling my hair out, but basically that energy of like I'm focusing so hard how to learn this damn language. And it was like that energy for most of growing up. I was so laser focused on my goals. I told you Capricorn rising. It's just like a lot of intense, hardworking energy. And I think it was around the time when I was in college when my body was just like, nope, I'm done. Like I'm burned out. If you don't listen to me, I'm going to stop. It's like a emergency brake. So it forced me to start listening to my body through somatic healing. I started connecting with it, started learning to respect and listen to my body cues, communicating with it. And that really opened up a portal for me to access my connection with spirituality. Like, what is my spiritual perspective? I grew up feeling very disconnected from it, but then I feel so deeply connected now. Also, more connected with my creativity because I think my creative joy kind of what I referenced with my dance experience. I basically, I think, told myself that it wasn't important enough, or it's something that I had to deprioritize in order to do well in school, survive, help my parents. Survivally things, creative joy to me got deprioritized. So by accessing my connection with my body, it kind of opened that up again. Like I felt my creative power. And that's when I began trusting my intuition more. So it's all connected. And that's how I was able to follow the breadcrumbs to what my aligned purpose is. It wasn't this overnight, I listened to my body and suddenly I know everything. But how it all guided me was, oh, I'm a healer. Oh, I'm an artist. I'm a guide. I'm a leader. I'm an entrepreneur. So it's coming home
Mhm.
to all these roles that I'm here to play. But then, not gonna lie, like I still struggled so hard after this period because what is a healer? What is an artist? What is a guide? Like, what does that actually mean? So I'm like, am I an
Yeah.
artist that heals? Am I a healer that's like creative? Am I a coach? Am I a speaker? What am I growing? The overall picture became more clear, but the tangible, like, what exactly am I doing and how am I going to make money and survive was still a question mark. So as I continued my corporate career in tech startups and doing business strategy and all of that stuff, and for my 9 to 5, outside of it, I was doing a lot of somatic coaching, healing, ancestral healing, but I still couldn't figure out how to align my entire purpose and creativity and expression into this thing that I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I was actually able to integrate more parts of myself into how I express myself that my business ended up taking off too. So actually realizing that, oh, yeah, I have actual business strategy skills that I can apply to my healing work and actual shifts that I have created in my body from my healing journey that I can apply to how I do entrepreneurship so that I'm not doing it in survival mode and not treating those two parts as separate and integrating everything we just talked about. Me as the eldest daughter, me as an artist performer, me as a coach, empathetic, deep, but also playful, sensual, ancestral, the mother, the hustler, immigrant side. I wanted to integrate all of these and not demonize the immigrant and hustling side for being too much. It's like, no, she's really helped me get this far and will continue to help me survive in this wild world. But also, it's like, how can she also feel safe enough to allow the relaxed, confident mother in me to come forth and lead? How can I allow my inner artist and performer to actually play because I can be all of these things? We're all such interesting nuances and like facets of a gem, right? So for me, somatics has been an integral part of coming home to all these little facets of myself, which make me uniquely brilliant in my own way and also helps me show up for my clients and for them to also access what is their unique facets of the gem that they're here to be. So yeah, and I feel like as more of us unapologetically step into who we actually are, the most integrated self, our presence alone actually inspires everyone around us to also be more unapologetic with owning all parts of themselves, even if there's a part of themselves that they're kind of pushing away as too much or annoying or survivally or, it's just unnecessary at this point. No, it's all necessary. So that's a little bit about my journey.
It's so powerful. Thank you, Eunice. I mean, I'm like writing notes as you're talking just so I don't miss anything. I mean, like two things that are coming up, actually three things that are coming up for me as you talk about like your journey and integrating somatics and different healing tools, which I consider astrology and the way that I practice it to be a healing tool. Like one, somatics, like at its core, right, is like about being attuned to your body, and it's like a homecoming, like returning home to your
Mhm.
body as a safe place, as a place of wisdom. A lot of the times, as we know, our bodies know before our minds can formulate a thought. It's both nunchi, but it's also like intuition, like gut feelings when you're like, for some reason, I feel like I like shouldn't do that for whatever
Mhm.
reason that we're taught
Mhm.
to. And then another thing too, like when it comes to bodies, I think it's so important to uplift the ways like I can only speak to Korean culture and US culture, the ways our bodies are policed, like being
Mm,
in white dominant spaces or in spaces where I don't see people who look like me, that does something to a child, and you also
mm,
can't see. So there are ways like I feel so amazed that I'm in a world where K-pop demon hunters exist, where
I
media like
know.
everywhere all at once exists. Like that's not the world I grew up in. And it's amazing to see it transform in this way. But there is such a way in which like trauma can be embodied. So it doesn't have to be like the most violent form of abuse for it to somatically imprint. As you know, it can be that like you never
Mm,
did a job where someone who looked like you is your supervisor. You've never worked in a team where someone also has a healing lens. Like all of these things shift in our body of like, do I belong here? Am I weird for being here? And so I think that's something coming up too is like the complexity of body and like listening to our bodies and that being not safe for many of like the people before me, for my mom, my grandma, like it was about survival. And
mm-hmm,
sometimes we need to shut off from our bodies to survive. And that just needs
mm-hmm,
passed down. So
mm-hmm,
somatics work is so powerful. And I think so much of the time when I've learned about it, it's been through white, privileged, wealthy people who like
mm-hmm,
have this is the second thing I wanted to bring out, the professionalization of healing work and ancestral work. I think it's important that there are areas of expertise study, right? Like I go to an acupuncturist, a Korean acupuncturist regularly. It's like many years of study. They're putting needles in my body. Like, yes, please have that. Please. And then there's also these ways where like these titles that are so like also spiritual. I feel like artist is spiritual work. Like coaching can be spiritual work. It just depends on person, but like it's becoming very professionalized to a point where it's being ripped of its spiritual roots. And that people who look like us are left out because of that. Because it
mm-hmm,
often gets washed, it becomes economically infeasible for people to get the certifications. And that's just something both of those things are coming up for me and just hearing your shares, one around like your body
mm,
at you, but also like how it can feel challenging to pick a lane because we've been told this is the one lane and here are the certifications. If you don't have that, you're not blank.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you talk about body and body wisdom, right? It's so sometimes painted as this simple act of, yeah, just listen to your body. If it feels unsafe, don't do it. So it's very simplified and black and white in social media, where especially as an entrepreneur or a creative or someone who's paving your own path forward, it can be very confusing because when you're about to take an action and put yourself out there or do the thing that you actually want to do, but your body's giving you mixed signals, it's really nuanced to be able to discern, is this my body telling me to not do it? Or is it telling me that I'm scared? Or what does that mean? So I think that's the part I love about somatics is yes, there's the basic body. It means body. It feels so simple, right? It's like, okay, connect with your body. It feels so elementary because in some ways it is. Like the reason why it's so hard is because of the conditioning, because of the lack of education around this, because of the Western severance of mind and body, and because of trauma. If all of those external factors didn't exist, as children, that's one of the first things we learn, sensory. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we notice in our bodies? Like it is actually so cool to see my 17-month-old son see the world and experiment sensorially with the world. And yet, as adults, why is it so hard? Because of all those layers. And that's why when you're about to go on stage and do your speaking engagement and you're feeling all sorts of sensations in your body, it doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it and your body's telling you not to do it. It just means that there's a part of you that's telling you something, right? Maybe you're nervous. Maybe you just want some support right now. And maybe there's a part of you that actually wants to do it. So I think I love getting into the juicy, like, what exactly is happening here and kind of decoding what your body's actually saying and needing. Because in order to cultivate that inner sense of safety, it can be complicated for folks depending on the lived experiences of like what have happened. And you mentioned your maternal lineage, like same thing with my mom, my grandma, my great grandma. The more I learn about their lives, no wonder, I've struggled so much in the past with speaking my truth, unblocking my voice, being seen, feeling unapologetic about taking up space, expressing my creativity. I could trace it exactly to what happened to them,
Yeah.
and me being in my 할머니, my grandma's womb through my mom, we're literally DNA bodily trauma connected, And so I think that's part of why I feel that somatics, astrology, the work that we do as first gen Korean American women is so powerful because of the specific cycle breaking that's happening in our maternal lineage and beyond. And, with the gatekeeping, with the expensive certifications and the whitewashing and the professionalizing of the industries, it is more and more important that we are feeling safe enough to ground in our own voice, our own path, and showing up because even us connecting, I'm like, oh my God, you're doing this too. And that's the signal of safety that we're all looking for as social animals. Like, oh, it's safe for you to do it too. Maybe it's safe for me to do it. And as more of us come into our power, come home to ourselves, I think it'll be like a contagious thing in a positive way of allowing our bodies to feel safe enough to just reclaim and embody that power in a more limitless way and not as cautious and hyper vigilant of something bad's going to happen. Which leads to me to my next question that I want to ask you, Yujin, of as first gen, as Korean American women, eldest daughters, I'm curious what fears or narratives that you had to move through to feel safe, being visible in your work, and what type of practices have helped you move through those specific fears.
Yes. I mean, so one thing I'm thinking about in your share, Eunice, is also the difference between familiarity and safety, which often,
Mm-hmm.
especially somatically, especially with the trauma back. And
Mm-hmm.
so work is in healing justice trauma recovery. And something I've had to recognize for myself is that I was repeating patterns in my relationships. I was overworking, trying to go above and beyond in every job. I didn't advocate for my salary in my first role. There were just things like I've never done before because I'm the first in my family. So no one is near me giving me exact advice. And I didn't know there were things I could ask for. And then secondly, I also look to, I feel like who I'm in relationship with reflects a lot of my mind state and also my relationship to abundance. So when I'm choosing friendships or romantic partners who are emotionally unavailable, who are in scarcity mindset, who are jealous, who are just in scarcity. Like, oh, how are you going to do that, Eunice? Like, how are you going to run a business and do all the right? Like those things that can be sometimes coming from a place of love and care can be a subtle way that people may love us, but are not the right people to be in our lane. And so that's something I've had to be very clear with myself on is like, one, I can't be that person for myself. The last thing little me needs to hear is that I can't do it. Cause that's
Mm-hmm.
been so many messages
Mm-hmm.
around what is expected of us, especially as Korean women, as the first families. And so something I've had to really be clear on is what are my values? What do I stand for? And then do my relationships and how I'm spending my time actually reflect what I say? And so like
Mm-hmm.
clear thing for me was one, just like honestly, like coming out to myself, to my friends, eventually to my mom. Like there are these ways in which like this process reflected so much about like my cultural trauma around like wanting to be loved, accepted unconditionally by my parents. And so one of the things I had to do is like, okay, I was like, I'm out here wanting to be a coach. I'm out here, doing workshops and talking about people being values aligned. Great. So turn the mirror. Great. So how are my relationships doing? What's my relationship to myself and how I talk to myself? Like, what is my financial health like? And so that had led me to having hard conversations around money, hard conversations around city with the people in my life, starting relationships, ending relationships, and having to be like my number one advocate and truth teller, because there are ways, like especially in ancestral healing work, I've been taught like not every ancestor is the one you call to help you,
Mhm.
right? Like our ancestors, I feel like ancestors are sometimes seen as like these like mythical beings, like who float around and like all these like Disney movie references, but like they're human beings just like you and me, who also really complicated just like you and me. So there are ways, like also in my ancestral healing work, I learned about some of the people in my family who I think had done the work to heal in their lifetime, are continuing to do it in their passing, and I think like can guide me. So I guess
Mm.
one thing has just been like being very intentional on who I'm in relationship with.
Mhm. And who you even open yourself up to receive support, because receiving support and input from people who don't have the capacity to meet your needs is
Mhm.
sometimes more harmful than no input. And for you to, yeah, like even just when you talk about coming out, it's like you talked about coming out to yourself, even to your first. So it's like such an intimate inner experience of being seen by yourself, your true self, and then also being reflected back in your relationships externally. So when I heard you speak, it was being very choiceful about how you are in relationship with yourself as well as how you are in relationship with external people, which all are also all mirrors, right? So it's like when we're secretly not loving ourselves or not accepting ourselves, I feel like we also project onto other people. And that the feeling of projection is something that I wanted to bring up with my own journey, because I think it's something that I just had this subconscious fear around for a very long time. And Kayla and I were talking about this, how we both have Chiron in Leo, the wounded healer. And one of the things we're here to alchemize in this lifetime is to feel safer being seen. And I think when you talk about our ancestors and our maternal lineage as well, I think I see why I am, have felt, especially in the past, and even now I'm working through, is why do I feel subconsciously that if I take up space and I'm seen as my true self in a bigger way, something bad's going to happen? Like,
Mhm.
it's this intuitive feeling. I was watching this YouTube channel recently of Epikai. I don't know if anyone's a fan of
Oh,
Epikai.
I-
Did you know that they have a YouTube channel? They're like YouTubers now. I was like, I haven't heard them in a while. I know they were on tour. Anyway, and I'm hearing Tablo talk about his journey. I had followed his journey, but how he did this past life reading, and how he was kind of like hunted as a witch in a past life. Yeah, he was like a dressmaker at a shop. He had a daughter, and he was a mom in that past life. And the daughter died of the plague, but the villagers blamed the mom for not praying enough or whatever. So Tablo was in this past life regression thing. He's like, I feel hot. I'm hot. And then they were saying he was being burned at the stake. And then like the two other members of Epic High are just like, even in your past life, like people are coming after you for no reason.
That's
And
why.
but I remember like seeing examples of stories like his and just feeling so, I think subconsciously me witnessing that was enough for me to be like, I never want to be in that situation, you know? And Yuzin, you were talking about how it doesn't even have to be this macro, huge trauma for it to imprint on us. So I think seeing other celebrities in Korea, and, Korea being a super high suicide rate, especially among public figures, and speaking of K-pop demon hunters, how the expectations put on K-pop idols in Korea, and how, if they touch marijuana, they're canceled and all these things. Seeing that, I'm just kind of like scared of how intense proud mob culture works sometimes. And I think even though I wasn't trying to be a K-pop idol right now, or I'm just, I'm out here being a coach, but there's something deep down subconscious being a Korean woman and also me witnessing how people who look like me are being come after because they said something wrong makes me feel like I will have a target on my back if I grow too big. And so it's this core belief that if I'm too powerful, being powerful is not safe and it invites some sort of, it makes me vulnerable to something. So,
Yeah, to sense.
and I thought this version of me was ridiculous for a very long time. I was like, I mean, you're not in K-pop. Like, why are you thinking about this? Like just get over it.
Right.
And I was speaking to that part with such, I was so annoyed that there's this part of me that was feeling scared. But I think that's one of the biggest things that was a reframe of how do I actually listen to that part? Because she's not crazy. Like, I am seeing literal evidence of something that goes wrong potentially for folks who are shining unapologetically with their gifts and people projecting onto
Yeah.
people that they don't feel good about themselves or they don't feel good enough or adequate. And so that's a huge thing that I had been working through, continue to work through, help my clients work through is like, how can we no longer suppress our fears, but really just understand the roots, validate the fears, and actually build enough nervous system safety while taking some micro action forward with support, with the titrated efforts. Don't go from 0 to 100, put yourself out to viral billion views if you don't need to.
Yeah.
But how can you really hold space and hug the part of you that's like, I'm freaking scared because I saw something that's pretty horrible that I don't want to happen to me. And even as little as things like, oh, if people might think I'm cringe or dumb or annoying or whatever, it's like, how can you affirm and validate that? Yeah, people can think that. But it's like,
Yeah.
once you normalize and actually hear the part that's saying that, it's way easier for you to actually have a conversation with that part instead of just like putting them in the closet and saying, you don't belong in my business. I don't want you as part of who I
Yeah.
am. So,
Oh my gosh, you're making me think of this like mind body exercise that I've done with my client, but also with myself called dialogue with the symptom, where you, especially this is great for people who prefer to write rather than speaking, you write out a script with whatever symptom that you want to talk to. Maybe it's like my anxiety. You just sit, mine is a she, her. You sit her in the chair, and then on paper, you just talk, embody
mm,
one. So one is you, and the response is your anxiety. And the idea is like for like 2 minutes, just write out a script and ask that part of you a question. Uh,
mm,
just made me think of that. But also, I was thinking too, like with your experience with back pain, particularly, I feel like that's something people don't talk enough about. It is something that can be like extremely debilitating. And I feel
mhm,
like chronic pain is often tied to not just something physical. So I'm like curious,
mhm,
like when you talk about like fear in your body, like the back pain, that was so clear for you. But how do you know when you're experiencing fear, like somatically that you need to work through versus like that stage anxiety where it's like, okay,
mm,
this is okay. This is like a safe level of like, right? Because like anxiety, there can be a healthy stress where,
mhm.
okay, this is going to get me through. How do you differentiate for yourself?
Yeah, I distinctly remember moments in my life in the past where I just felt so there's a specific memory. So this was March 2020. I had just started a new job and I was in a room full of white male execs and I was trying to communicate to them that I didn't feel safe commuting to work because I just saw another Asian woman in the news where someone threw acid at her face because of they were blaming people for COVID. But I couldn't even say it. Like I couldn't even say that I don't feel safe coming into the office. I just felt frozen. I felt this complete block in my throat. It was like concrete and
Mhm.
numb in my arms and everything. And I think in that moment, I was like, why is it so hard for me to just say what it is that I was feeling? I was trying to say it without actually saying it. And someone at the time in power was basically, why is this such a big deal? Like, just come in, or like, why are you making such a big deal out of this? I remember like I got off, I left that room and I was just crying. And that was a breaking point for me to just be like, I mean, that's when I started working with a coach. I started doing public speaking. I was like going the other way. I was like, okay, you silence me. Like, okay. And then so I went the other way and I was like, I'm getting in touch with my spirituality. I'm calling my ancestors. I'm doing all the things. But yeah, it was this deep blockage, concrete thing in my throat. And I don't drink coffee anymore, but I remember before getting on even virtual speaking things back in the day, like 2020, it's like that feeling of having too much coffee. Like my neck is like hard and then my neck is trembling. And I realized that there were stages of me feeling more and more safe to speak my truth and share my story. But it's not, like you said, this clean cut thing where it's like, now when I do things, host things or speaking, it's not like, wow, I feel nothing in my body except joy. Like, it's no, I like,
Like,
okay, like I'm excited, but then also I'm a little like, okay, there's something happening. And, they say excitement and fear, I think, are the same coin, but the other sides. And you can really regulate your nervous system through breath and movement and all these things to get you from one side to the other. So I would categorize it as what I experience now is manageable. It's very manageable. I'm empowered with the tools and the support system I have my go to rituals. And it's never, at least now, this feeling of debilitating or chronic. It's more, instead of this feeling, it's like that. So when I'm feeling a little bit of like butterflies in my stomach, I was like, okay, I'm excited and nervous. So I like do my push against a wall. I drink my water. I do my essential oil thing. But
Yeah.
back in the day, like no essential oil or pushing against a wall or
Oh, no.
breath work was going to help me unblock that voice in that moment. It's like, it was deep. It was deep. And this was like, you know, pre a lot of the support that I have now. So I think that's all to say, like, I don't think we're meant to do this by ourselves in general. And somatics, especially, we're not meant to hold ourselves through this whole thing. There's a whole point to being held and also in an aligned way with an aligned person or group, and being able to be mirrored back, reflected back is not something that you can just tell yourself to do and be hard on yourself because you can't read the book and just apply it to yourself. It's so much of a practice and it's cyclical. Like I've unblocked my voice like 20 times at this point. I reference one incident that stuck in my head, but there are so many micro moments where I noticed that coming up. But each time it's like I completed a cycle of, oh, that's why. Oh, how can I validate myself one more time? How can I breathe one more time? And I think that
Right.
helps me also discern the little details and the differences between how it feels in my body when I know that, okay, this is a boundary, like I'm not doing this versus I can do it, but I just need a little bit more support to get there.
Yes, this is so helpful. I think, thank you for sharing that because I think that sometimes there's this myth of a healing journey ending. Like, oh, you just read all the books, do all the therapy, and then you made it. Then you're healed, and the end. And trust, if anyone was gonna try to do that and it would have happened by now, it would be me. So many freaking books on how to heal all these things. But I think like something from your share that's so important to highlight here is that one, it's a journey. It can take years. And like what we know from trauma recovery work, sometimes when you are at your safest place is when all this shit will come up. Y-
Mm-hmm.
Your body and your mind are aligned and ready to heal some of it. So sometimes like I've had clients feel, I don't know why I feel so messed up right now. Like things are going good. I have a job, I have a healthy partner, whatever it is, like something is aligning so that people can do the work. And sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes you don't get to choose. life is lifing, and then things are happening where we have to work through it in live time, and sometimes we need to revisit it. So that's something
Mhm.
I'm also hearing in your story too, is like this continuous commitment to yourself being key. And
Mhm.
something else I'm reflecting on in terms of just having a business that is representative of values or like purpose driven.
Mhm.
And so last month I went to something called the Survivor Wall Summit, which is from Free From. It was in LA. It's awesome. It was a conversation for survivors of violence, gender-based violence, to get together and talk about building our own businesses. You would have
Mhm.
loved it.
Yeah.
And so fabulous. And so like one of the speakers, who's Roxanne Gay, who is like
Mm.
I part-time emoji. It's just like, her work is prolific, but she talked about like in writing or like writing your book, you have to figure out for yourself the boundaries of like what is too precious for you to share. Like,
Mhm.
what are you willing to have trampled on? Because the minute you share something, it is out there
Mhm.
forever,
Mhm.
particularly print book, right? It's like it's here and it's very hard to unprint a book and take it out of the stores. And that's just like one of the words of advice that I've been holding as it relates to creating a heart-centered business is like there may be parts of myself that don't need to be represented in business, in my
Mhm.
work. It can be the relationships I have with the close people in my life. I guess that's something I would want everyone to also consider is like having something that's your own and representative of you. You don't have to give all of yourself away. And there are certain parts that actually you might want to treasure and holds very dear, right? Like, especially in like creative work, sometimes there's this idea like you need to put out all your traumas. And then it's like, then like that's like the juicy stuff. Like,
Mhm.
and I think sometimes that's exploitative, like particularly from like white dominant culture, like people of like women and people of color are often asked to talk about the hardest things that have ever happened to us in order for us to get some money, in order for us to get the job.
Mhm.
Like in this conversation too, while we've talked about things that have been hard for us, I'm really proud of us for sharing also the wins, which I would love to hear.
Mhm.
Like that, like joy is also abundant enough. Like our joy and power is abundant enough to keep this work going. It doesn't always have to be about what's wrong.
Mhm. Yeah. And especially in healing work or coaching or personal brand, or when you're growing a business that's not necessarily completely different from your identity, whether it's ice cream shop, although I guess ice cream shop could be part of your identity, but even like in the world of startups, it's a little bit less personal, although everyone loves to make a mission driven story around it, like why they found therapy and it changed their lives. And now I have to scale therapy to all of America. But, when you're a coach or when you're a speaker, consultant, you are the face, the voice, the service, and the product. And when you price your services, it's like pricing yourself. And it's like, if someone says no, it feels like a rejection to yourself. So it's very
Right.
personal. And you're putting out your trauma and your story out there. And they're just like, nope. It can be very triggering. And it's absolutely important to resource ourselves. That's why I value pleasure, joy, beauty, creative expression, dance, all those things as so generative. And it's that life force, like I mentioned before, that helps me sustain myself as a human, but also as a business. Yeah, I'm curious if you have found that to be true, or what do you do when you feel creatively stuck or disconnected?
Good question. Feel creatively stuck. I try to do things that little me likes to do. Little and big Eugen definitely have ADHD. And so like something honored by process is like switching things up is actually so helpful for me creatively.
Mm,
Uh, so going somewhere I haven't been to in a long time or been before, like being outside in nature, like doing something different, um, connecting with my friends, like asking trusted people for ideas. And sometimes ideas come in like the most unexpected ways too. So I think just like
mhm,
routine, getting out of my space has been really important. And then letting things rest. So
mm,
someone who has ADHD for sure. Um, there's ways where like I'll have these intense periods of productivity you know? It's like that like SpongeBob meme where it's like all these arms, it's like cleaning everything, and then I'll just like burn out. So in an attempt to not do that, I'll try to create more variety in my day to day so that I'm not seeking that like dopamine hit all
Mm,
up. Although that's my creative process. I'm here for it. We love that for me. But shifting my environment has been critical. And then also, I haven't mentioned it yet, but like looking at my birth chart has been very helpful. So
mm,
birth chart data has helped me understand where I feel like that with a Venn diagram, like the middle of like what feels purposeful and pleasurable, which I think
mm,
is like what we're trying to do, what we're talking about in this conversation. Like, what would feel purposeful for like my Taurus moon, Virgo, Mars, all these things combined with like all these air placements I have that want variety and things to be different, but human centered. So that's been helpful. And then looking at my outer planets in my chart to understand some of the generational systemic factors that contribute to like when I go into a funk, it tends to be connected to one of those planets or like my family
mm,
in your chart it shows. But like there's usually something about like I'm not making enough money or like right, like there's some type of scarcity thought that's like connected to something generational. So I try to be aware of that when I'm in my emo day.
mm. Yeah, I mean, as you were talking, I'm like, almost everything I have is most likely linked to generational. This point, I'm like, oh, yep, that's tied to this. But recently, so for most of my journey of coming home to myself, it has been very much generational healing, ancestral healing. There's just so much safety, speaking up, feeling safe being seen, feeling good with money, feeling good with relationships, everything. But then something recently that's been popping up as an entrepreneur is I think my previous startup career in business growth strategy, sales, all of that stuff, I didn't realize how much that has impacted how I show up as an entrepreneur in both positive and like challenging ways. So when you talk about dopamine hits, one of my jobs in sales and growth strategy was if I don't sell something or if I don't book a call or do something that day, it's almost like you did not do your job. You need that dopamine hit every day or else you're not doing well. Your performance is broadcasted to the entire company. And like when you do something well, you get a little like a notification on Slack or something. And then like people high five you. It's so stupid. And then they replay the call that you had with someone
In front of
like to the
everyone.
whole team and then they critique it. It's just like your worst nightmare as a Leo and Chiron. You know what I mean? And but like there's this masochistic side of me or like this side of me that wants to do uncomfortable things and push myself was like, I should do that job because that's going to help me unblock my voice and get
Right.
even better. And it's going to make me a better entrepreneur. So I put myself there because I loved sharing my story and connecting with people. And I wanted to be the best at what I do from my heart. And I felt so blocked when I couldn't fully express myself. And I wanted to express myself not only personally but also through my business. So I knew that the skill of selling, the skill of having conversations with people who want a certain service or product to be able to like fully listen to them and like actually decipher what it is that they need and recommend a solution to me. I wanna be good at that skill, not only by learning how other people sell, because I don't vibe with how traditional sales is taught
Yeah,
and,
it's
like,
very
super white, bro-y, capitalist, like, non-consensual vibes over there. I wanted to be really good at it from my own way. I think it's been a big learning lesson of, okay, when I feel like something isn't happening in my business every day, it's almost like there's a part of me that's like, "What's wrong?" "Oh, nothing's
Mhm.
wrong, you're doing really well." But it's like, I'm my own boss, so I have to tell myself, "I'm doing really well." Like, have a
No one's
really
talking to me.
don't be a toxic manager to yourself, of like, "Where is
Yeah.
the output? Where is the" and I can mother myself well from all the years of working on that, and as a parent, I mother Teo so well, and I'm, like, so confident about it in a relaxed way, and I realized as an entrepreneur, I need to apply that same thinking as my own manager, as my own boss, like, "You're doing a great job. That's enough for today. Give some good feedback and words of affirmation? And also, how do I not do all the things and burn out because I'm trying to prove myself or be busy because that's what I'm used to doing? And that's what I noticed was that's when the misalignments happened in my journey of entrepreneurship corporate was like at one point I was doing a podcast, doing a group program, doing one-on-one and speaking engagements, workshops, Instagram, email. I'm just tired even just listing these out right now. This was before I even found product market fit, as in I didn't even find proven demand yet or have an actual sustainable income. But I was like doing all the things because I thought I had to.
Yeah.
And
Very eldest daughter of you.
yes, very eldest daughter, Capricorn rising, generational trauma of me. And
Well,
all of that when I burned out and went back and went back. And that's what I'm proud of, honestly. Speaking of being kind to ourselves as a boss, I'm so proud of myself for coming back and showing up again, even after burnout of I'm meant to do this. I'm going to figure it out. If anyone can figure it out from what I have dispositionally and everything, like it is me. And
yeah.
doing it in an aligned way instead of doing all the things and actually incorporating nervous system, somatics, all that stuff so that I'm not running around trying to do
Mhm.
more in survival mode, but really being the most grounded, most integrated self. What does that version of me, the most integrated version of myself, want to do and need to do in this moment in my business? And that going from that order has helped repivot myself from misaligned opportunities in my
Yeah.
journeys.
Like
So,
the hustle, the like more, because sometimes the hustle can be disembodying. And I think there's something to be said around like what it takes in our nervous systems and spirit to slow down. A lot
mhm,
of my family and like what I carry in my body has never slowed down. So
mhm,
to learn to slow down in a real way and understand that this is a critical part of the process, also had me facing my own hidden grief, my fears, my anxieties, like feelings of self worth that I didn't know were present because I was always being of service and holding a role somewhere else. And so I think there's something to be said too around like the commitment it takes to be soft and
mhm,
slow down,
mhm,
and that it will feel uncomfortable if you are not used to doing that. Keep going. I feel like this is
mhm,
so important because sometimes there's this association with like uncomfortable, don't do it. Which is why I asked that question, like, how did you know? And like the somatic feelings are different. Like, of course,
mhm,
like you're literally being blocked, you're heavy. That's a really different feeling than like, like that feeling in your body you get when you're supposed to have a hard conversation with someone, but then you don't do it. Like that feeling, you need to work it out.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I don't say like you need to feel safe to do something. It's like safe enough.
Yeah.
And because safety
Yeah.
is also very subjective depending on your lived experiences. And you talk about softness. And if you were to map my softness and hardness from age 0 to now, it's like hard. Or maybe I was soft in the very beginning before any sort of conditioning. But probably as soon as my brother was born and I was eldest daughter, like hard. I was like,
Yeah. Promoted.
through everything, I'm gonna solve every problem. Like no one can tell me shit, basically. But
Mhm.
then back pain, somatic healing, ancestral healing, and I was like, soft. I'm really soft. And like my heart's open. I'm just in my soft era. But then, that soft girl was not making any money and was also getting taken advantage of because my heart was just I was just open, and I was losing that part of me that was the hustler, the strategist, all these intellectual parts. I just said, "No, you are too much. You are too hard. I need to be soft." So sometimes we also put that on a pedestal. We put things on a pedestal and it actually all parts, I mean, hashtag K-pop Demon Hunters, like all parts need to be part of the picture for it to actually work in your highest level of authenticity and power and skill set and even in your business success, right? Like actually allowing all parts of you to come. So my journey was like soft, hard, soft, and then now I'm both. And so I think that's been That's been a really fun journey of healing, but also just integration and just living, living while healing versus fixing a problem, which I think that's how the industry sometimes paints it because it's profitable to paint it in that way for a lot of companies out there. But is there anything else you want to add before we open it up to Q&A?
I The only thing I would add is, did you know you your business has an astrology, and anything that has ever began has an astrology? So something I want to share with people is that there are ways for you to do synastry and compatibility readings with your business. So
Mm-hmm.
I've done for some of my friends, and it's been very interesting. Eunice will talk after about what your business's sign is, but that's
Yeah.
the envelop astrology is thinking
Uh-huh.
is teaching you and what are your
Yeah.
charts.
Speaking of which, my midheavens in Scorpio and the way I'm meant to share myself in a public image way apparently very intense and deep, transformative, potentially just triggering because of Scorpion existence and a lot of death and rebirth. And so my business has died and rebirthed so many times. And I think something that's helped me embrace was we're just meant to reinvent, at least for me. And I'm way more okay with it. Like I don't have mind drama over it, or I used to think of it as failure.
Mhm.
So yeah, when you talk about the chart of your business, I treat it now as an entity that what wants to come forth, what do you need to feel nourished and not really internalize my business as me. It's more like an expression of me or something, a vehicle through which I express parts of myself, but I also don't want this codependent relationship with my business, right? Of determining my worth, but also my revenue, especially as a mom who, went through maternity leave and things. Like I don't want this thing to be like we're just enmeshed. I want it to feel free and a really symbiotic relationship between me and my business. So I love that you mentioned it because it definitely has a living, breathing feeling for me. Yes, please feel free to share any questions in the chat or unmute yourself.
I have
Hi.
a question. So you talked about, feeling like you're always going, 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 and like the slowing down part was hard. I feel like for me, I'm kind of realizing that, I'm the same way. Like I kind of immerse myself in work to avoid, you know, kind of just like dealing with everything. Because that's always been for me, like made to be on the back burner of taking care of my mental health or like my creative adventures. And I feel like I'm trying to learn to slow down, but it doesn't feel safe in my body to do that. So I was just wondering if you have any tips on what works for you to help you feel more safe to do that.
Yeah. I think slowing down is not binary. So it's also slow is very relative, I found subjective for people. Like, I think my slow technically isn't that slow. So, recognizing that there's no one formula or standard that you have to be like looking on social media and someone's, out in the grass and not doing anything for supposedly for however long. And like you feel like you have to perform the rest or perform the slowing down, it probably feels more foreign in your body than to actually say, what do you need in this moment right now? And slowing down may literally just be walking around the block. And that's slow enough for me today. It might mean that of the 10 things you're doing, you're going to cancel one thing, right? And so I want to normalize that I don't think I was technically ever really slow. I say I slowed down, but even my slowed down part is pretty fast. So I don't think you have to be slow to heal. How can you recognize the parts that are too much right now, too fast or too much too soon, and dial it back one level, just one step to see how that feels, and then go from there. And I don't think it's like you flip the switch and then you just go to the other side. Like I think that is very drastic to your body and shocking to the body. Yeah, and when you talk about like dopamine hits too, it's like if your nervous system is so used to this baseline and you automatically jack it down to this, there's something, even if you're quote unquote safe, technically, you might perceive it as unsafe because it's not familiar, like Yoo-Jin said. So what are ways where you can still give your nervous system a little bit of the familiarity and the safety so that maybe it's not like going from here to here forever? And which, by the way, we don't necessarily want to slow down forever either. So we're not trying to get to a flat line of nervous system, which is like not alive. Okay.
Yeah,
So it's like, instead of doing this or living up here or living down here, we're kind of like, how do we flow in this zone of, well-being, zone of being, feeling like ourselves? And inevitably we'll be knocked up and knocked down. And that is okay. And that is normal. And that is expected because there are times when our body should go into survival mode, right? But it's when we get stuck that's sort of the issue. So if you're having trouble slowing down and you're up here, like, how can you curve down a little and then flow here and flow here versus nosedive into slow zone?
yeah. The only thing I would add is like think about what's your biggest pain point. I mean, not to bring in work jargon, but like, and if it's hard to identify, ask someone who knows you really well and loves you very much, and ask them because they know. As people who are around you, like my people know what my pain point is because they see it. So thinking about like where is it where you need more slack, and then thinking about you're always going to be juggling the walls. Which ones are glass, which ones are plastic, and let them fall before your body, like Eunice had talked about, will make you. Which is like the only time I would ever slow down is when I got sick.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. That was really helpful.
Does anyone else want to share anything or ask anything? Awesome. Well, Yujin, if people want to get in touch with you, or what's on tap for for this season of all the stuff that you're doing?
Let's see. So I will share my Instagram as well as my consulting page. So in addition to astrology, you can sometimes find me doing healing workshops, anti-racism work, which is a lot of my professional background, trauma recovery. So it just depends on what you're interested in. So I'm just gonna give you both.
I love all the in-person stuff that you do in DMV area. But yes, definitely also book Yujin for all your astrology readings and all the things, and get in touch with her. You can find me. I just dropped my link to my website. I mainly work with folks one-on-one, and I do one-on-one somatic business coaching. So combining both the nervous system, somatic work with business strategy to make that money in an aligned way and unlock that freedom and time and money freedom through your business, and doing it in a very purposeful, aligned way. And it brings me so much joy to work with my clients. So if you're interested, I have one spot left for the rest of the year. So get on my calendar if you're looking for support. And yeah, just DM us with what's been brewing after this conversation. Yes, Yujin and I are matching in honor. Although I always wear black, so I'm always repping my Scorpio midheaven.
I love it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I hope we can all keep in touch. Thank you. Thank you.